fellas. It's part of the podcast.
Come on, you guys don't like me as much as Murr? Thank you. All right, guys, who loves Jason? Who loves Hatchet? Oh, it's like, that's great. Well, welcome, Mr. Kane Hodder. Yeah, Papa Kane, where you at?
I'm late.
We missed you.
Hello.
Put the whiskey down.
Oh, that's nice.
There you go.
That is nice. Much more comfortable here.
Right? We should come play this sooner.
How'd it go doing a panel with Doug Bradley? Woo!
Amazing.
He's fucking weird.
Aren't we all?
Sorry. I gotta watch my language. I'm sorry about that.
Aren't we all a little weird here?
No. I'm not.
All right.
How's the show, everybody? Is it good?
Yeah.
It's always fun when I come here and there are actors that I'm a fan of. The biggest one being Murr.
Talk about you now.
He
Oh,
said
really?
he's having dinner with you
He said
tonight.
you're interviewing them.
That's right, we are having dinner, but those guys deserve all the success they've achieved because they are brilliant at what they do and they remain humble. That's the big thing because these guys, Murr can't go anywhere without being recognized, I'm sure, right?
That makes his show very difficult now.
Yeah, I would think that a lot of times people that are involved in the show say, wait a minute,
Right?
you're so-and-so.
Yeah.
So it has to be difficult, but the fact that they all remain the same as they were when they started is what I admire because, you know, there are things that change in your life when you're known for doing something in particular, and people sometimes get a little full of themselves. And most of the people here, almost all of the actors that I've either worked with or just have known for years are very, very humble and appreciate all of you guys because we are in the position we're in because of you guys. Let's face it. You know? No, that's true though. You know, when I do cameos a lot, and I always make sure I mention the fact that, you know, I'm asked to do cameos because of people like you, so thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. I thought you were like so eager. You have to right now. How's that?
But I do have a question for you.
Okay.
Okay,
If you'd like to take it.
sure, unless it's stupid. I'll let you know.
Ask it. Oh, well, by the way, we took a piss together. You loved it. You were like, let's look at each other's dicks.
Yes.
I was like, okay.
And you were impressive, I have to say. So,
6'3" for a reason. But anyway, this is actually his question. He's been dying to ask you, and I'm going to do it.
9 inches. Thank you for the question, sir. No, that was yours. Don't hang it on him.
No, but no, go ahead. If
All right, hang on. Well, we're putting me on the spot. All right, so you've done both, Hatchet and Friday the 13th. Which character do you prefer to play, Victor Crowley or Jason? And follow up, who do you think would win in a fight?
Yeah.
All right, so I have had that question before, and who would win in the fight between my Jason and my Victor? I give a very slight edge to Victor because he's a little less predictable. Doesn't mean you can battle Jason effectively just because you know what he's going to do, but Victor has a little bit of that working in his favor. So it would be a great fight. I'd love to do that movie and play both characters.
Yes.
But I think, Victor might prevail because of that factor. As far as playing the characters, I mean, you have to remember that I've been a stuntman for 45 years. That's how fucking old I am. So when you go into the stunt business, you're not trying to be famous. Whereas, if you go into acting, a lot of people are doing it because they want to become famous. And sometimes it happens, most of the time it doesn't. So with stunts, you just love doing crazy shit and getting paid very well for it. I mean, if you've read my book or seen the documentary, you know that I used to do crazy shit just to entertain my friends and to scare them. Hanging off a balcony in Hawaii on the 35th floor just to scare my basketball teammates when we were playing them. And so when you do stunts, you just love it. You don't expect to get any notoriety. In fact, often you will do dangerous shit on a movie and an actor will take credit for it because you were stunt doubling them. Which, you know is part of the deal, so you don't really care. But then all of a sudden you play a character that is known around the world already. By the time I played Jason, there had been 6 films. So everybody knew that character. So the fact that that was now me, I'm sure you can imagine how incredibly surreal that was. I'm playing a character now that everybody knows around the world. So everything changes. So it's hard not to appreciate that character more than Victor. I mean, I played Victor because of having played Jason, and Adam Green liked how I performed as that character, so he wanted me to play Victor. Which, first of all, you play one character.
Victor was you.
Exactly, that's a good point. You play the character of Jason, other people have played, so you do your own take. Now all of a sudden you have a guy, Adam Green, saying, I want you to play the character of Victor Crowley in Hatchet movies. And he, at that time, said, we're going to do more than one. And I was like, yeah, I've heard that before. He came through with it, and we did 4 of them. So, being able to play the character of Victor Crowley and develop it from the beginning with how I thought the character should be. So it's so hard to say which one I enjoyed more, because Jason put me on the map and Victor was all me. So they're both huge points in my career. I don't know if I can say which one I like better because they were so different. I made Victor a lot more animated and
Victor had some good chase game.
What?
Victor had some good chase game. He would chase you.
That's right.
And then rip your school apart.
But I love both of them. I feel incredibly fortunate to have played 2 characters that horror fans know. If you're lucky enough to play 1 character, you're fortunate. But you get a second one, I mean, that's huge.
You were the best.
Thank you.
Rock and roll.
We all know that you're a fantastic stuntman, but I think you're a fantastic actor as well when you get to say lines. I always enjoy it when you pop up to the screen as somebody that's not masked, or you're not stunt doubling somebody, so we know it's you. I love it so much. How did you hone your acting skills? Did you take classes? Did it just come naturally to you? Something you always like doing?
I've never been trained as an actor at all, because I never expected to do any dialogue. Maybe a line here and there in a movie before I get my ass kicked by the star, something like that. But I've said it before that if I have any talent with acting, dialogue, emotions, and stuff like that, it's because of working with people and observing them. The one example I always use is I was the stunt coordinator on a movie called Monster. And I worked with Patty Jenkins, who directs the Wonder Woman movies now. She directed that movie. And Charlize Theron, who won an Oscar for that character. And as a stunt coordinator, you're on the set every day, but often you don't have that much to do. So I started observing Charlize, because when you're in any other position on a movie, you're busy all the time. Every shot you're involved. But if there's no stunt action, I could sit and watch her, just observe what she did to prepare for certain scenes. And it was invaluable. I've never really talked to her about this either, but just, observation. In the background, not being intrusive at all, just watching how she would prepare for some of the scenes, and considering she won an Oscar for it, pretty important stuff to watch. And I just learned a lot from watching. And I think that later on, when I was given the opportunity to play characters that were not just killing people, which is pretty easy for me. I don't know why, but I don't know if that's a good thing to say, but it's easy for me to be incredibly violent. So, but not so easy to do something emotional. The first time I had to do a scene where I was crying, it was a little challenging, but somehow didn't seem that hard, because I had watched so many other people do scenes like that I just learned and then developed my own feeling about how to do it. And for some reason, in the last few years, I've been able to do quite a few emotional scenes. And, I don't know if a lot of actors feel the same way, but that can be the most difficult thing to do on a film, is cry. Because you have to do it. It's like they roll the cameras, action, cry now. It's a little tough to do, but for some reason, I'm able to pull it off. And I just did a film with Bill Moseley, once again. One of my favorite guys to work with, because he's such a talented actor. But I love doing scenes with him. But we did a movie in Pennsylvania in December called Hayride to Hell. And it's interesting because it takes place on a farm that has a haunted hayride attraction for tourists. And that was my first experience with signing autographs, was at a haunted hayride in Massachusetts, which became Spooky World.
Oh, yeah.
It was Spooky Hayride the first year. It was just a hayride. And I was there with my buddy Gunnar Hansen, and he and I were signing at the end of the hayride. And that was my first experience with fans. And to go ahead and do a movie that is kind of reminiscent of that is very cool. That all kinds of crazy stuff happens at the hand of Bill Moseley. I'm not a bad guy in the movie, he is. And I'm actually the sheriff of the town. And I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to talk about the movie too much, but there's a scene where I'm on the hayride. Moseley owns the farm and has the whole hayride, and he tricks me into trying to shoot a crossbow at an apple on top of somebody's head. And it appears to be my son that I'm shooting, and to make a long story short, I shoot the crossbow and I kill my son. And he's laughing his ass off because he tricked me into it, and I have a very emotional scene. And so I'm anxious to see how that came out. But, it's just, the thing with playing a character like Jason or Victor is that filmmakers who want to get a name that is known in horror, they want you in their movies. So, what better way to interest an actor than to give them a part that they haven't really done before? Because any actor likes to challenge themselves and do something new. So that's how that all happened. But keep an eye out for that one, and there's a lot of other ones that still haven't come out but are imminent. So keep an eye out.
Any word on Arthur Prescott?
That's an interesting one too. It was a lot of fun, and I'm excited about it.
I hope it comes to be.
I know.
Yeah. Okay, more audience questions. Let's go back there. Yes. What was it like working on Impractical Jokers?
Well, first of all, Q is a good buddy of mine, and he contacted Adam Green and said he was a horror fan and wanted to be killed by me in a movie. So we killed his ass in Victor Crowley. And because of working with Q on that, I became friends with him and all the other guys, and then did the Impractical Jokers movie right here in Atlanta. And it was amazing because, I was the stunt coordinator on the movie because I had worked with all the guys indirectly in the past. And then the director said, why don't you be Paula Abdul's bodyguard? And I said, perfect. And tell a quick story about Paula. She's little. And there was a scene in the movie, if you've seen it, I don't know if you've seen the Impractical Jokers movie, where she had to clothesline Sal. And I said, well, I want to get a stunt double for Sal because I want this stunt guy, as he gets hit in the neck, to really go up and go flat on his back. And I didn't necessarily want Sal to do that. And I said to Paula, I think I'm going to get a stunt double for you because I want it to be pretty violent. And she goes, a stunt double? I said, yeah, I just want it to be violent. She goes, you don't think I can do it? I said, well, no, it's not that you can't do it, but I want it to be violent. She says, you don't think I can do it? I said, well, she goes, stand there. And she gives me a forearm to the chest that about knocked me over. And I said, you're doing it. And she did it in the movie. She was maybe little, but she's tougher than she looks. And it was just so much fun working with all the guys and her in that movie. And I don't know if it had the same feeling as the show because it was scripted. So maybe it was a little different, but it was still a lot of fun.
I saw some others. Okay. Yes.
I wanted to know, what was the most dangerous stunt you did in your movies?
That's a pretty good question. The most dangerous stunt I've ever done in a movie. I mean, you know, considering I got burned, are we boring you?
You know, I need a refill.
Okay, watch your back out there, motherfucker. Just saying. Considering I got burned, as you know, doing a fire stunt way back at the beginning of my career, the fact that I continued doing fire stunts maybe shows that I'm not real intelligent, but I always loved doing fire stunts because there's so many stunt people in this business, and such a small percentage of them do fire stunts because it's a very particular type of talent to have to go through the process of getting prepared to be on fire and then to be on fire. So some of those were kind of dangerous. The one I did as Jason in part 7 was my favorite. And I was on fire for so long. It was pretty amazing that, because you go by how it feels. When you're on fire, you go by the feel of it, so that as soon as you go to the ground, they know to put you out, your safety people. But aside from some of the fire stuff, I did a movie called Fair Game.
Yeah.
With Cindy Crawford and Billy Baldwin. And there were 4 of us stunt people that were in a helicopter, and Cindy Crawford and Billy Baldwin are on a train. And we come in the helicopter flying over the moving train, and we have to jump out one at a time from the helicopter to the top of the train. And it's an interesting situation when we were thinking about it ahead of time. There had to be 4 people jumping, one at a time. So we, in designing the stunt, couldn't figure out whether when you jump out of the helicopter and you hit the train that is moving forward quickly, when you hit, are you going to go backwards? Because the train's moving forward. And we kept going back and forth on whether we thought that would happen or not. And any idea what the outcome was? When you jump out of a flying helicopter and hit the top of a moving train, does it kick you back? What would you think?
No, you splat on it.
What?
You splatter on it.
It's flatter on it.
What he is saying is what's accurate. When you jump out of a flying helicopter and drop, you don't drop straight down. You drop forward because you're flying forward. So when we would hit the train, we would land as if both of them were stationary, which certainly was a relief the first time we did it. The other thing is that when we flew in, I was to be the 4th person jumping. So as we flew in the first take, the first guy climbed down to the skid of the helicopter instead of the deck where we were. And I thought, well, that's going to be easier. Now we're 3 feet lower. I didn't expect him to do that. So he climbs down on the skid, we fly in, he jumps. Now the pilot is compensating for the weight on one side. So as soon as he jumps, the helicopter did this, and then had to come back in over the train again for the second person. By the time I jumped, it was all over the place. But the other thing about stunts that people don't realize is when you see a stunt in a movie, you see one take. That's it. Whichever one they decide to use, you have no idea how many times that stunt person had to do that stunt. We had to do that stunt 5 times. 5 different takes. And we did it 3 times, and I apologize if you've heard the story before because I've told it, but we did this, and it was at night, by the way. We shot it 3 times, and then we broke for meal. So we were like, okay, I think we're done. And it seems like we've done it 3 times, we probably have it. While we were eating, this was in Florida, while we were eating, it rained. And now we're like, oh shit. I hope we don't go now and do it again with a wet helicopter and a wet train. And sure enough, we had to go do it 2 more times. So that's the thing that you see one take on a movie, but you have no idea how many attempts those stunt people had to make. So that can be the difficult part. But that's probably one of the more tricky ones we did.
For that kind of situation, do they ever, I'm ignorant on this, is it usually one take they show you, or is it a composite of the multiple takes?
They show who?
Like the final product, do they ever like take different pieces of the stunt and throw it
Not
together?
typically.
Okay.
It's usually just whichever take they think is the best.
Okay.
And sometimes you have to do multiple takes because you didn't perform the stunt very well. So that's on you.
Wanted it, yeah.
But, yeah.
Okay. Yes.
So, speaking of unpredictable things with stunts, when you were working on Frozen, what was it like working with actual wild animals?
With the wolves,
Wolves.
talking about Frozen, which, not that one.
Talking about that with birds.
Oh, about Frozen?
Yeah.
Oh,
He said that movie inspired one of his pranks.
good.
And he said it inspired one of his punishments. It did.
Oh, wow.
They did a
Interesting.
chairlift punishment.
Yeah, it was, we shot it in Utah and at a ski resort, of course, and, when we were shooting the movie, I was asking the people that worked the chairlift, I said, this is a ridiculous premise, right? Nobody would ever be left on a chairlift accidentally. And the guy said, well, it has happened, so maybe not for the length of time in the movie, but it has happened. So, and now I live not far from that. I live in Park City, Utah now. My wife and I built a house up there for just a second home, and then we ended up loving it, so we sold LA. But it was, I didn't really deal too much with the animals, because we didn't have the actors that close, so I didn't, as a stunt coordinator, didn't really have to worry about that too much. But animals can certainly be unpredictable. Just when you think you know what they're going to do, you don't. So, but it was a fun movie to do just because it was different. And I played the character that was oblivious to.
Left them. Just left them.
Yep, they're throwing shit down, trying to get my attention, and I'm like looking like this, driving. All the shit's falling down in the windshield, and I'm looking backwards. So, but another Adam Green movie, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right, who else? In the front, right there.
For years, it's always been kind of rumored that Part 7 was originally supposed to be Jason versus Freddy. Can you confirm this? And if so, did you see a play for it or a script for it?
Not that early. I never heard about Freddy versus Jason on Part 7. But by the time we were getting ready to do Jason Goes to Hell, that's when I started hearing talk about it. And you know, it's two different studios, so it's a pain in the ass to reach a deal where both people are happy. So I know that Freddy versus Jason was supposed to happen after Part 8. And when it couldn't get common ground, we did Jason and Goes to Hell. And then we did Jason X because they still couldn't come to an agreement. Once they finally did, and I was brought into New Line Cinema and had a meeting with the producer there, and she gave me the Freddy versus Jason script and said, we're finally doing this movie. Now, wouldn't you think that you're pretty well set? When you're given the script and said you're doing the movie, then the director was hired.
They shit the bed.
Everything went to shit. And I was excluded, which I think is far more offensive that I was told I was doing it and then got replaced. No, none of us can bitch about getting replaced because everyone has. The only person who played Jason that hasn't been replaced is Derek, because he's the most recent one. But everyone else that played the character was replaced. Why should I think I would do more than one movie? I never did.
And no one else had before you.
Right. And in fact, after Part 7 came out, I started going to places and doing signings. I used to sign Jason number 7. So if you ever see that signature somewhere, that's a rare one, because I only did it for like 10 months. And once I played the character a second time in Part 8, then I dropped that. You know, it'll always be a tough sore spot in my career that I was replaced after being told I was doing it.
It's a sore spot with the fans as well.
Well, still was a successful movie, so I don't know how much people really hated it, but
We go for the Freddy.
okay. And as she always says, Freddy's a bitch.
Young man right behind you guys, the front.
Was it hard working on Friday the 13th at all, or no?
It was physically hard because, like Part 7, my makeup took 3.5 hours to apply every day. And this is even with the hockey mask on, because in that movie, part of the mask is missing, and you can see my teeth and everything, even with the mask on. So I had to do that process every day for 2 months. And that gets old, man. When you have to start shooting at 7 a.m., for instance, and I'm in the makeup chair at 3:30 because I need to be ready at 7, boy, that can wear on you. And by the time, you know, halfway into the movie, I'm still doing the process of the makeup. By the time I got done with the makeup, I was ready to be violent. Did not take a lot of acting to be violent, but it was still my favorite version of Jason that I played because of the makeup.
I hate that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been doing stunts for 45 years and shit. Now, the process in any profession changes. So when you look back from where you were when you first started to, like, you know, in the last 45 years, you see a progression of it. Do you have anything to tell to the new guys that you're like, hey man, you're so lucky because back in our days, we just got drug our ass behind this car. So now you got all these, because I do standbys for stunts. I don't take the hits. But, you know, you go back and looking back, is there anything that you've done in your past career that you can feel now, but you're like, man, if it had just been in, you know, a little foresight, you know, was there anything like you took an injury that you still bothers you today, but if only you would have, this would have been here 20 years ago when I started? Is there like?
Well, yeah, there's obviously times within a stunt career, especially that long, where techniques change and safety measures change, and it's funny because in the last 2-3 years I've met stunt people that do big movies, Marvel movies and stuff, and I'll sit and talk to them, and I try not to be the old fucking guy that bitches and well, back in my day. But I've talked to so many stunt people that do big movies, and I'm like, so what kind of stuff do you do? Well, do a lot of wire work and fight scenes, and I'm like, what about fire? No, never done fire. Have you flipped a car or jumped a car? No. Do you, let's see, what else is there? Oh, high falls. What's the highest high fall you've done? Well, none really, because it's wire work, and I'm like, you're a stunt person, and you do fucking wire work, and you don't ever hit the ground? You have got it easy. Because wire work just means you can do a fall and be stuck before you hit anything. And,
You're just riding
you know,
You can fall pretty.
You're just riding a ride. You're not.
so, you know, I do tend to say, man, you guys have it so much easier. You're a stunt person that doesn't really ever hit the ground. That's, to me, not really what stunt people used to do anyway.
But y'all laid the tracks, man. Y'all.
Some of the hardest stunts I've ever done were like fight scenes where you have to land on your head or something, and it takes a toll. I mean, I walk poorly now because my knees are gone and my lower back isn't great. And the guys that are doing stunts these days are probably going to have 60-year careers because they don't take any abuse. So I'm kind of, you know, I am kind of the old guy that's bitching like, you got it too easy, but
I walked
hard not.
uphill to school in the snow both ways, right?
That's right, both ways.
On
How'd you do
fire.
that?
So we have time for one more question. I'll let you pick. Who do you want to take?
Right here. Yes.
What's your favorite blooper?
Ooh, I like that. Favorite blooper of the film?
It was actually you, but that's fine. We'll do you next, okay? No, that's fine. My favorite blooper? Somebody just showed me a picture of it, which I didn't know existed. But it was in Jason Takes Manhattan.
Yeah, part 8 was it you opened up the door and the lady was down there?
And doing what?
The children, you guys dildos?
That's the one. Yep, I did that mainly just to entertain myself, but opened the door and stood there with a big schlong hanging out of my. But yes, you already had that in mind, didn't you?
He answered his own question, man. But who were you pointing to originally?
Yes, her.
Oh, her. And lady. How many fires allowed, baby? How many fire stunts have you done?
Fire stunts? Well, it depends. I mean, some of them are what we call partial burns, where just a part of your body is on fire. And then the ones that I was more known for is the fully engulfed, where, like in part 7, I had so much fire on me, it was hitting the ceiling and spreading out above the ceiling. But I've probably done, you know, real fire stunts, probably 20. And I was just telling the story, sorry to maybe end it on this, that Lance Henriksen, who you all know, he used to tell a story, and probably still does. He says, I did a scene with Kane, and an acting scene, and he says, the whole scene, Kane was looking me right in the eyes. And then he leaves it at that, so that people are saying, so isn't that what you do when you're acting? You look at somebody in their eyes when you're working with them? Then he adds, oh, by the way, Kane was on fire at the time. I was doubling Brian James in The Horror Show,
right? Yeah.
And he gets electrocuted, catches on fire.
It's a great kill.
And I was on fire, and I was pointing and yelling at Lance, and he was just amazed that I could have that presence of mind to still act, even though I'm on fire. So it's kind of a cool thing.
So before we wrap up, I need to do some shameless plugs. First, I want to shout out Adam Marcus, who directed Jason Goes to Hell, and he's making a documentary, Hearts of Darkness, which you're a part of. And so they're working on that. I'm very excited for that. We just had Adam on our show not too long ago, and he's lovely. Do you still do Casualty Friday podcast?
Yes, we do.
Check that out, guys. It's a lot of fun.
We haven't done a little bit we did an episode recently, but because of COVID, we haven't been in the same place, so it's kind of hard to do it via Zoom or whatever, but had a little medical thing happen at the end of last year, so that kind of limited how much access we have to free time. So
yeah, for sure.
But we're still doing it, and we intend to start up again very soon.
Oh, great! Yeah. I love the show. It makes me happy. So check out Casualty Friday, the podcast with Kane and Felissa, Tiffany Shepard, and guest stars. So it's a lot of fun. All right, everyone. Mr. Kane Hodder.
Thank you, guys.